a good one. What about all these games these days which are absolutely obsessed with group setting creation?
Mm-hmm.
Right, obsessed. You spend 4 hours before play. I get to make up we pass around the cards. Oh, I get to say something about the village, and I get the next card. Oh, I get to say something about the religion, and you do this around and around and around for fucking ever. And how is that different from somebody, coming to the table with 4 pages of setting notes and some ideas for what's in this village, and we play? Really, what's creatively the difference? The answer is nothing. The authorities have been distributed differently. Now
Yeah.
we have to assess on whether that's fun or not based on everything else and how it feels when we play. That's all. But that's why I get really tired of this game masterless play. The task is the same. You're just talking about whether it is centralized or decentralized.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as game masterless, GMless. It's bullshit.
Someone has to do it. Someone has to.
Yeah.
Some.
The
Yeah.
tasks are
Yeah. For
there.
example.
And there's lots of tasks
Yes.
too, not just one. So you can distribute
Yes.
them all kinds of ways. Yeah.
I think this is one of the interesting my observations. For example, I played Iron Sworn, which has a mode to play without the game master.
Yes.
And I've also played Fiasco, and I
Well,
don't
are you
recall which
playing it
other.
without the game master, or are you cognitively separating out these tasks from these
Yeah.
other tasks personally? Which
Yeah,
is what
I
I
want
think
to.
you are doing in Ironsworn. But go on.
Yeah, I want to comment that what I really like about. Oh, I've also played Microscope, which I'm not sure it's in Robin Loss. Definitely Fiasco is Robin Lawson game.
No,
What I
Fiasco is
really
Jason
like.
Morningstar.
Yeah, sorry,
No, it's okay.
my mistake.
No, it's
What I
fine.
really like is that when the game with distributed GM role has the rules to how it is distributed, because Iron Sword, in my opinion, doesn't have it, and it's so messy because
Yeah.
we as a group had no idea who's responsible for what,
Right.
who does the distributed role.
Right.
At least Fiasco and Microscope have rules. It's your turn. You're
Right.
saying this. This person will say this person will say this, and we can manage this. But sometimes it's just like
Right. I agree.
it's
Yeah.
chaos.
It's quite frustrating because personally, I think Ironsworn has so much potential. Right.
Mhm.
And I almost want to sit down, play with the creators, and keep my mouth shut and just write down their answers to those questions, right? Because we will find it is not random. It is the distribution of authorities is never random, and it's never socially negotiated as you go along. If you do, then we have the bartender problem and the axe problem, and all of a sudden everything becomes chaos, and then people start picking up the rule book. And once that happens, forget it. Forget it. This is not a legal question. Using the book in the first place is a rules-based choice. That's your rule about whether we look in this book. So you can't go to the book to resolve that. It's not going to happen. So let's take a look then at another variable. Because if you're interested, I've identified, I think, 4 authorities as highly distinct from one another, so that each one can be distributed independently of how the others are distributed. And so it's awesome. It's really fun to think about this. So I already mentioned backstory authority, which I think is pretty obvious, and then situational authority. Now, situational authority is very broad because you can talk about transitions into new scenes, and we are talking about the procedure of activity in them. And then we have outcome authority. Now, outcome authority is interesting because it only applies to situations that or play moments that whatever happens has to be treated as a new normal. Right? A new normal. And so if you have a critical dialogue with some other character and their minds change and they do something, that was outcome authority that was involved there. But and so a lot of the most obvious outcome authority are fights. But as you can see, it can be lots of it. But it's a change in the normal. The play will now proceed with this new this new issue in place
Mhm.
because of that. That's outcome authority. Killing the goblin is a perfectly good example. Doesn't have to be profound.
Yeah.
But now there's one which is tricky that I also refer to called narration authority, which at first you think is just a piece of outcome authority. So I'm not talking about narration like just talking about my character walking around. I'm talking
Mhm.
about of outcomes. And
Mhm.
we discover by watching play that narration of an outcome has a lot of room in it for activity that isn't the same as the outcome.
Mhm.
And so uh, some of them might well be just reactions. You can say, um, okay, say, just to go to the obvious example with the game, the pool, you roll, you have succeeded, you are fighting this guy, and he's trying to kill you, and you're like, I have to defend myself, right? And so
Mhm.
then you have succeeded, and then you have a choice. You can either take the narration of now we know what happened, the outcome is done. You were trying to kill him in self-defense. We know that.
Mhm.
That's not debatable.
Mhm.
But you have a choice. You can either let the game master narrate it, and then you
Mhm.
get to have an extra die for your pool. Maybe you're low on dice and need some. Or
Mhm.
you can say, I like my pool the way it is, even if it's low, perhaps. I do want to say. I feel something. I want to say it. So what can you get to say in the pool? You cannot give it, you don't have backstory authority. You cannot reveal that this guy was the killer clown all along, right? You're not making the backstory with your narrations. It's only
Mhm.
narration authority. And you can't change the outcome. You can't say, oh, he captures me and takes me off to his pirate ship. No, no, no. We knew that. What you can say is something like this: I kill him with one blow. It seems too easy. I feel bad.
Mhm.
Or you can say, we fight for 2 hours and we end up on the other side of that hill, right? Isolated from the
Mhm.
rest of the people. All that is fine. All that is fine. So, but do you see the huge differences that those two narrations make in play?
Mhm.
They are authority. They are taken seriously by everyone else. They are heard.
Mhm.
So narration authority is different from outcome authority, and it's a very interesting little animal, right?
Mhm.
So once you realize that you could put them all in the hands of one person, not that they have to come up with every idea. Sometimes authority is just listening to what other people suggest, but you get to choose, which you see a lot.
Mhm.
I mean, how many times, especially in superhero games, they are full of people happily making, spitballing suggestions about things, but the person who gets to say what they do or what it looks like or whatever, maybe it's a player, maybe it's a game master for different times, they'll say, okay, okay, thank you, that's enough. It's this,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
they all shut up. Everyone says, oh, yes, we were happy to suggest, and we are happy for you to say. We're happy.
Mhm.
Nobody was challenging you, right? Nobody was trying to take over. We just
Mhm.
know it's fun for all of us that you like it when we all chatter, right?
Mhm.
So that's what authority is. It's not making other people shut up, and it's certainly not overriding the rules. It is applying the rules, the constraints,
Mhm.
as people want you to. They say, yes, it's you. I walk across. I want to walk across and talk to the bartender. Or even I walk across and talk to the bartender. But we know it's the kind of game where you have to say yes. Okay, if that's how we're playing, I'm good. So it's kind of an important idea, because then you can embrace mechanics, what most people call mechanics, which I think apply to rules for talking as well as rules for dice and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if you're familiar. I'm sure you know the term. Um, I've just been a little surprised sometimes people don't, but I don't mean to patronize you. I'm
Mhm.
sure you know it. The form of algebra where instead of numbers you're using phrases.
Uh,
So it's called
yeah.
Boolean algebra. So you think of A and B, A plus B equals C and stuff, right? Think of those as phrases and when the
Yeah.
equations work and how you can switch them around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Role playing is Boolean algebra. And then a subset of it is the quantitative sets inside the verbal ones. So
Mhm.
if you if once you start thinking about this, then it really becomes fun to say, for this way to play, for some kind of game I'd like to play, this particular configuration of authorities is great for this, right? If we are playing Sorcerer, the configuration of authorities for different characters is extraordinarily important. The game master has certain authorities regarding the demons. The player has certain authorities regarding their character, which they don't typically have in many role-playing games, at least at the tables. And so the impact of those authorities, having to treat each other as constraints, is very strong. So yes, there's a game master with players. The players don't have backstory authority. Now, I'm talking about during play. Making it up before play is completely different, right? I may have made up my character's, religion and their position in the religion. I am a sub-cardinal at the Vatican, right? And so that's fine. They may have done that. Maybe it's a fantasy game and they made up fantasy Roman Catholicism for this purpose. But in play, who gets to play the church, its institutions, the other cardinals, and stuff like that, right? That's what we're interested in. That's what I'm talking about in play. So if we have all of this in action, when we say system does matter, we are talking about whether the constraints embedded in each of these verbal sets and who gets to apply them. We are talking about whether it is fun. Whether I like being in a situation where I have the opportunity to suggest or whatever when it's your authority, or when it's my authority, it's my time to do this, or just to say it, right? I mean, it's fun to be the person. We know it. It's fun to be the person who looks at your damage roll and says, I nail him. I get it, right? Or for that matter, saying this better work, and I roll and I'm like, oh no. And you will find people taking over narration authority there because the table doesn't know anything about narration authority. So they're just, they have their own rule for it, but they don't know what it is. How many times have you played where people have narration authority over the outcome of single actions? There's the outcome, right? Whether succeed or fail, but they take the narration authority with sound effects. They will make the sound effect of killing that goblin. They will make the sound effect or the detail. You fail to hit that guy and you really wanted to hit him. It was a big deal. Everybody had set you up for this one attack. You used your big hit for it, and you're looking at the worst die roll in the history of dice. And which is these statistically descend on me in a non-random way, by the way. All right, so dice hate me a lot of the time. So what happens is I do that, and I can't help it. I narrate something about it. I narrate maybe how my character tripped on the step at the last moment, or how maybe I even hose my character. I say something that makes my character not look very good. Right? Nobody can do that better than a player about their own character. When they want to have the character have terrible luck or do something very incompetently, they will do it. And people will repeat that for years about this great moment. Right? And so the issue here is that nobody would enjoy that unless we knew that it was your authority to do that. Nobody, I mean, if we have a game where all of a sudden the game master says, no, that's not what happens. It goes like this. Well, that's okay, but you'll quickly discover that groups that say, look, the players have authority over their characters all the time, every which way, and the game master has authority over everything else all the time, every which way. Watch them play, and it's not true. The authorities are distributed a lot of the time far more democratically, if that's the right word. Basically, they're just widely distributed in some way.